When my father told me I would get everything, I did not feel happy. I felt cold inside. Because his next words were not kind. I was standing by his hospital bed. The room smelled like medicine and clean sheets. The machines made soft beeping sounds, like they were breathing for him. He looked small in that bed. My father, Robert Harris, the strongest man I ever knew. His hands were thin now. His eyes tired. He held my hand and said, very calmly, "You get it all. The house. The money. Everything." I opened my mouth to speak, but he raised one finger. "On one condition," he said. I leaned closer. I thought maybe he would ask me to take care of my brother. Or keep the family together. Or forgive someone. Instead, he said, 1 year. 1 full year. You will work as a cleaner. Every day. No excuses. I did not understand at first. I just stared at him. "A cleaner?" I asked softly. He nodded. "Scrubbing floors. Toilets. Other people's mess. You must live like that for 1 year." I wanted to laugh. But nothing came out. Then he said something that hurt even more. "If you refuse, everything goes to your brother." That was the moment I realized something. This was never a gift. This was a test. And someone else heard it too. I did not know then that my sister-in-law, Linda, was standing outside the door. I did not know she was listening. I did not know that one sentence would change the rest of my life. At that moment, I only knew one thing. My father was watching my face. Waiting. I squeezed his hand and said, "Okay, Dad. I will do it." He closed his eyes. Like he had already won. I am Margaret Harris. I am 62 years old now. And this is the story of how 1 year as a cleaner took everything from me. And also gave me something I never expected. I grew up in a quiet town in Ohio. The kind of town where everyone waves. Where houses have porches and old trees in front yards. My father, Robert, worked in construction. My mother, Helen, stayed home and kept everything running. She was gentle. Soft-spoken. Always tired. I was the older child. My younger brother, Daniel, was born 5 years after me. From the day he arrived, everything changed. My father adored Daniel. He called him, my boy. He taught him how to throw a ball, how to fix engines, how to speak loud and proud. I was not ignored. But I was expected to understand. "Margaret is strong," my father would say. "She doesn't need help." So I learned to be strong. I learned to stay quiet. I learned to smile even when something hurt. My mother understood me. At night, she would sit on my bed and brush my hair. She never said much. But her hands were warm. When I was 23, I married Thomas Miller. He was kind. Gentle. A schoolteacher with tired eyes and a soft laugh. We had no children. Not by choice. And after many years, Thomas passed away from a heart condition. After he died, I moved back into my childhood home. My father was older then. My mother was already gone. Daniel was married by then. His wife, Linda, was polite but distant. They lived nearby, but not in the house. At first, everything felt normal. Quiet dinners. TV in the evenings. Routine. But slowly, things shifted. Linda began visiting more often. She would clean the kitchen again after I had already cleaned it. She would rearrange cabinets. She would comment on my clothes. "You dress very simple," she once said, smiling. I smiled back. That was my habit. Daniel stopped talking to me like a sister. He spoke to me like someone who was just there. Someone temporary. My father watched all of this. He said nothing. Then he got sick. The hospital days were long and quiet. I was there every morning. I brought clean clothes. I fed him soup. Daniel came when he could. Linda came when she wanted. The day my father made his condition, the room felt heavy. Like the air itself was listening. After I agreed, he slept peacefully. He passed away 3 days later. At the funeral, Linda cried loudly. Daniel stood straight and strong. I stood quietly at the side. After the burial, we gathered at the house. The same house I grew up in. The same kitchen where my mother once sang while cooking. Linda walked through the rooms like she already owned them. That evening, Daniel pulled me aside. His voice was low. "What did Dad say to you?" he asked. I told him the truth. His face changed. Not anger. Something colder. "So you're really going to do it?" he asked. "Yes," I said. Linda appeared behind him. She smiled, but her eyes were sharp. "Well," she said, "a deal is a deal." That night, I lay in my old bed and stared at the ceiling. I thought about my mother. About Thomas. About all the years I had been strong. 1 year, I told myself. Just 1 year. I did not know yet that the hardest part would not be the cleaning. It would be what people do to you when they believe you deserve less. The next morning, Linda handed me a printed paper. A list. "These are the agencies you can apply to," she said. I already looked them up. I stared at the paper. "You're serious," I said. She tilted her head. "Of course." My father-in-law was very clear. Daniel said nothing. He just watched. That was the first time I felt truly alone. I applied to a cleaning service called Bright Hands Home Care. The name sounded kind. The work was not. The manager, a woman named Carol, looked at my hands. "At my age." "Are you sure?" she asked. "Yes," I said. She nodded and handed me gloves. That was the beginning. I did not tell my neighbors. I did not tell my church friends. I told myself this was temporary. Every morning, I put on plain clothes. I packed a simple lunch. I cleaned other people's messes. Some were kind. Some were not. At night, I returned to my father's house. Linda had already changed the curtains. She had moved my mother's photo. "This looks better," she said. I said nothing. I kept my promise. And every day, I felt myself disappearing a little more. The work did not get easier with time. People say you get used to things. But some things do not soften. They press deeper. Every morning, I woke before sunrise. The house was quiet then. Too quiet. I would stand in the kitchen, holding my cup of coffee, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. Linda had replaced my old mug with a matching set. White. Plain. Cold. She liked things to look new. She liked things to look like they belonged to her. Daniel left early for work. He barely spoke to me anymore. When he did, it was short. "Don't forget to lock up," he'd say. Or, "Linda wants the lights off upstairs." Not "thank you." Not "how was your day." Just instructions. I walked to the bus stop every morning. The same bench. The same cracked sidewalk. Some days, my knees hurt so much I had to sit slowly. I told myself not to complain. I told myself this was my choice. At Bright Hands, they sent me wherever they needed. Large houses. Small apartments. Sometimes offices after hours. The smell of bleach followed me everywhere. It stayed in my clothes. In my hair. One afternoon, I was cleaning a family home with toys scattered across the floor. A little girl watched me from the couch. "Why are you old?" she asked. Her mother laughed nervously. "I'm so sorry," she said. "Kids." "It's okay," I said softly. But later, in the bathroom, I leaned against the sink and closed my eyes. I had never felt old before. Linda started keeping track of things. "How many hours did you work today?" she would ask. "Did you miss any days?" I would answer calmly. I always answered calmly. One evening, I came home late. My bus had broken down. Linda was waiting in the living room. The lights were bright. "You were supposed to be home at 6, she said. "I worked late," I replied. She crossed her arms. "You know the condition. 1 full year. No excuses." Daniel sat on the couch. He did not look at me. I nodded. "I know." That night, I cried quietly into my pillow. Not loud. I had learned how to cry without sound. The hardest part was Sunday dinners. Linda insisted we eat together as a family. She cooked large meals. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Fresh bread. She placed the dishes carefully. Everything perfect. I helped clean up after. Even though my hands were already tired from the week. One Sunday, her sister Emily came over with her husband, Mark. They sat at the table laughing. Emily looked at me. "So, Margaret, are you working these days?" Linda answered before I could. "She's doing cleaning work. Full time." Emily raised her eyebrows. "Oh." There was a pause. "Well," Emily said, "at least it keeps you busy." I smiled. The same smile I had practiced my whole life. After dinner, I washed dishes while they talked behind me. I heard my name. Then laughter. I did not turn around. As the months passed, something inside me grew quiet. Not peaceful. Just quiet. I stopped talking about my day. No one asked. I stopped keeping my mother's old things out. Linda said they made the house feel dated. One afternoon, I came home and saw a box by the door. "What's this?" I asked. Linda did not look up from her phone. "Oh, just some old things. I thought we could donate them." I opened the box. Inside was my mother's quilt. The one she had sewn by hand. My hands shook. "I'd like to keep this," I said. Linda sighed. "Margaret, we need to move forward. Not live in the past." I closed the box carefully. "I'll keep it in my room." She shrugged. "Fine. But don't clutter shared spaces." Shared. The word echoed in my mind. At work, my body began to protest. My back hurt constantly. My wrists burned. Carol noticed. "You okay?" she asked one day. "Yes," I said automatically. She looked at me for a moment. "You don't have to prove anything here." Her words stayed with me. Prove. That was exactly what I was doing. One rainy evening, I ran into my neighbor, Mrs. Collins, at the bus stop. She had known me since childhood. "Margaret," she said. "Is that you?" "Yes," I said. She looked at my uniform. Then back at my face. "Oh," she said softly. I waited for her to say more. She did not. "Well," she said, "take care of yourself." On the bus ride home, I stared out the window. Rain blurred the streetlights. I wondered when my life had become something people felt sorry for. The breaking point did not come loudly. It came quietly. It was a Wednesday evening. I was exhausted. I walked into the house and smelled something burning. Linda stood by the stove. "Can you clean the garage tomorrow?" she asked without turning around. "I have work," I said. She turned to face me. "So? Do it after." "I'm very tired," I said. Daniel looked up from his phone. Linda's eyes hardened. "Tired?" she said. "You clean for a living. That's what you do." The words hung in the air. I felt something crack inside my chest. Not anger. Something softer. Sadness. I nodded. "Okay." I went to my room and sat on the bed. My mother's quilt lay folded beside me. I pressed my face into it and let myself cry. This time, I did not stop the sound. That night, I dreamed of my father. He stood in the doorway, watching me scrub the floor. "You're learning," he said. I woke up shaking. A week later, something unexpected happened. I was cleaning a small apartment owned by an elderly woman named Ruth. She watched me carefully. "You remind me of my sister," she said. I smiled politely. When I finished, she handed me a cup of tea. "You don't rush," she said. "You do things with care." I sat with her for 5 minutes. Just 5. It felt like a gift. When I stood to leave, she pressed something into my hand. A small envelope. "For you," she said. Inside was a note. It said, "You matter." I cried on the bus ride home. Linda found the note in my bag that evening. "What's this?" she asked. "Nothing," I said. She read it anyway. Her mouth tightened. "You need to remember your place," she said quietly. "This year is not about you feeling good." That was the moment I understood something clearly. This was never about cleaning. It was about control. As winter came, the house felt colder. Not just the air. Daniel stopped coming home for dinner. Linda rearranged more rooms. One night, she stood in front of me. "When this year is over," she said, "things will be different." I looked at her. "Yes," I said. "They will." I did not know yet how true that was. I had 6 months left. And something inside me was changing. Winter settled into my bones that year. Not just the cold. Something deeper. I moved slower now. My hands stayed sore even on my days off. But my mind felt clearer than it had in years. I had stopped hoping Linda would soften. I had stopped waiting for Daniel to notice. Something inside me had gone quiet and steady. The turning point came on an ordinary day. That is how these things usually happen. I came home early because my last client had cancelled. The house was not empty. Voices came from the living room. Linda's voice. And another. I stood still in the hallway. I did not mean to listen. But my name stopped me. "She's almost done," Linda said. 6 months left. A pause. Then Emily's voice. "And after that?" Linda laughed softly. "Oh, she won't stay. This house is ours." Daniel agrees. My chest tightened. "She really thinks she'll inherit?" Emily asked. Linda lowered her voice, but not enough. "The will is clear. But there are ways around it. We'll convince her to sign things. She trusts us." I leaned against the wall. My legs felt weak. "She's just a cleaner now," Linda continued. "She won't fight back." Something inside me broke. Not loudly. Cleanly. I stepped into the room. They both froze. Linda's smile disappeared. Emily stood up quickly. How long were you standing there? Linda asked. Long enough, I said. My voice surprised me. It was calm. Very calm. That condition, I continued. The year of cleaning. Was that your idea? Linda said nothing. Daniel walked in then. He looked from my face to Linda's. What's going on? He asked. I looked at my brother. Really looked at him. Did you know? I asked. About this? He hesitated. That was my answer. I nodded slowly. Okay. I went to my room and closed the door. For the first time in that house, I locked it. That night, I did not cry. I sat on my bed and thought. About my father. About how tests are sometimes just excuses for cruelty. About how strength does not always mean staying quiet. The next morning, I took the day off work. For the first time in a year. I visited a lawyer named James Walker. A calm man with kind eyes. I told him everything. The will. The condition. The pressure. He listened carefully. Margaret, he said, no one can force you to live like this. And no one can take what is legally yours. I felt something loosen in my chest. Just a little. That evening, I came home with papers in my bag. Linda noticed immediately. What's that? She asked. Information, I said. Daniel watched us from the doorway. I will finish the year, I said calmly. But after that, I will make my own decisions. Linda laughed nervously. You wouldn't dare. I met her eyes. Oh, I said softly. I already am. For the first time, she looked uncertain. That night, I slept deeply. The next months passed differently. Linda was polite. Careful. Daniel tried to talk to me once. You didn't have to make it legal, he said. I looked at him. You didn't have to let it go this far. He had no answer. The final day of my year arrived quietly. No celebration. No apology. I folded my uniform for the last time. I washed my hands and looked at them closely. They were older. Rougher. But they were mine. I walked into the house and placed my keys on the table. I'm done, I said. Linda said nothing. Daniel looked down. I went to my room and packed my mother's quilt. Just that. When I walked out, Linda spoke. You think you won, she said. I turned to her. No, I said. I chose myself. I closed the door behind me. I moved into a small apartment across town. It was nothing special. 1 bedroom. 1 bathroom. A narrow kitchen with old cabinets and a window that faced east. But every morning, the sun came through that window. Soft and warm. And for the first time in a long while, it felt like it was meant for me. On my first night there, I placed my suitcase on the floor and stood still. No one followed me. No one watched. I laid my mother's quilt on the bed. I smoothed it carefully, like she used to do. Then I sat down and let the quiet settle. It was a good quiet. A safe one. I slept deeply that night. Not the tired sleep of exhaustion. But the peaceful sleep of relief. The days after I left felt slow at first. Almost empty. I woke up early out of habit, then remembered I did not have to rush. I made my coffee and drank it by the window. I listened to birds instead of instructions. I stayed with Bright Hands for a few more months. Not because I needed to prove anything. But because I wanted to end that chapter on my own terms. Carol understood. "You've changed," she said one afternoon as we stood outside a client's home. "I know," I replied. She smiled. "Good change." I continued visiting Ruth every Thursday. She waited for me with tea already poured. One day, she reached across the table and held my hand. "You spent your life taking care of others," she said. "Don't forget to take care of yourself now." Her words stayed with me. I started doing small things just for me. Walking in the park. Buying fresh flowers. Reading in the evenings. Simple things. But they felt new. Daniel called a few weeks later. I almost did not answer. But I did. His voice sounded smaller than I remembered. "The house feels empty," he said. I did not respond right away. "You always kept it together," he continued. I didn't realize how much. I closed my eyes. "I didn't keep it together," I said gently. "I carried it alone." There was a long pause. "I'm sorry," he said again. This time, it sounded real. We spoke a little longer. About small things. About the weather. It was not forgiveness. But it was a beginning. The house sold in the spring. Legally. Cleanly. When my share came through, I stared at the number for a long time. Not because of the money. But because it felt like proof. Proof that what happened to me was real. And that it was over. I paid off my debts. I saved a little. I lived quietly. That was enough. One afternoon, I passed by a school playground. Children laughed and ran. Their voices filled the air. I sat on a bench and watched. For years, I had thought my life was something that happened to me. Something decided by others. That year as a cleaner changed that. Not because it was cruel. But because it showed me something clear. I had survived every version of myself. The quiet daughter. The obedient sister. The invisible woman. And I was still here. Sometimes, I still think about my father. About that hospital room. About his test. I no longer feel angry. I feel sad. He believed strength meant endurance. He never learned that strength can also mean walking away. I wish he had known me better. But I know myself now. On quiet evenings, I clean my own small kitchen. I move slowly. I do it with care. Not because I must. But because I choose to. There is dignity in honest work. But there is also dignity in knowing when your worth is not up for negotiation. If you are listening to this story, maybe you recognize parts of it. Maybe you have been the quiet one. The one who stayed. The one who endured. Please hear this. You do not have to earn kindness. You do not have to suffer to deserve love. And your value does not decrease when someone fails to see it. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is leave without shouting. Without slamming doors. Without trying to be understood. Just a gentle step forward. Toward your own light. I am Margaret Harris. And this was the year I stopped proving my worth. And started living it.